Hi, I'm Tara Darlington from Empowering Motherhood, and this is day 3 of the 7 secrets to childbirth. Now, the third secret, which often surprises a lot of people, is that birth is a sexual behaviour. It's a bodily function, but it's also a sexual behaviour. Now, we know this because as we're learning more and more about the hormones in labour, we can see that the same hormones, there's like a cocktail of hormones that are present in labour and peak during labour, are also present with lovemaking and flirting, the birth and breastfeeding. So we have this cycle from flirting to lovemaking to birth to breastfeeding, bonding, and the recovery for the mother and the baby. Now, the main hormone is oxytocin, and it's known as the hormone of love because it is connected to these same situations, which are situations of love. You also get quite a lot of oxytocin for you and for the baby when you hold the baby, when you cuddle the baby, especially when you carry the baby around in a sling. So the question that I like to ask my clients, which we usually have quite a bit of a laugh in the classes, is what is needed from a woman, for a woman, to feel for her to feel safe to make love. Now, we usually go around and ask all the partners and have a bit of a laugh, but the same things come up all the time. So a woman needs to feel safe, she needs to feel secure in order to let go and surrender herself, and feel comfortable in her body. So feeling comfortable is also what a woman needs in order for lovemaking. She also needs to feel warm and in the mood. There needs to be a certain mood, doesn't there? So you can start to see where things like music and candles and essential oils can come in. They really create the mood and make you feel a certain way. There's actually a lot of research gone into how music changes your mood. So, you know, having a playlist with your favourite music on it, some relaxation music on it, some happy music on it, all these sorts of things are things that really do help women in labour. Now also some massage, some gentle touch, gentle stroking with that loving kindness really helps a woman to feel safe and secure in lovemaking. Now, the same environment is needed for a woman to birth. The other thing here is that a woman wants to feel listened to and that there's easy communication. And there's a lot of body language to be read in lovemaking, just as there is in giving birth. So what we have is this love hormones, which link it to being part of your sexual behaviour, and that this is the environment, this is what's needed for a woman to let go and open her body and allow herself to birth. The other point there that I haven't written down is to have the lights dimmed or even quite dark. So obviously a woman is going to feel much safer, much more comfortable if it's darker, to be naked, to really be herself and let go of any inhibitions. And again, the same is very true in birth. There have been experiments done with cats with that they don't that the birth stalls when bright lights are put on the cats when they're giving birth. And I have got a really good story about that in a minute. Now, on the other hand, we have the stress hormones. Now, I call these nature's safety switch because they work to actually make the mother and the baby safe by switching off the love hormones, the labour hormones. So let's just move on, think a moment about the stress hormones. So I'm talking about fight and flight, or fight, flight and freeze. Okay, what situations, what circumstances create that stress, adrenaline and other stress hormones? We've got, if someone feels insecure, or they feel unsafe or scared, all these things really start to put us on high alert to observing and listening to what's going on around us in quite a tuned in way. If you feel threatened, fearful, or cold, you also are igniting, stimulating this fight or flight response through the stress hormones. Feeling frightened, confused. So that comes back to that communication. Perhaps not understanding what's going on, not understanding who's there and why or anything like that. When we feel confused, we start to release these stress hormones, and we can go, when it's heightened, into fight, flight or freeze. Now, what happens in labour, as I said, it's like a safety switch. So when the stress hormones go up, the labour hormones go down. Okay, when the stress hormones go up, the labour hormones go down. So what we see in labour is that if women are feeling insecure, threatened, confused, unsupported, not listened to, cold, the hormones can switch off their labour hormones, which means what we see in the labour is a long labour, a slow labour, or even a labour that they use the term stalled. So you can start to see why women who are very fearful, aren't well supported, are feeling very insecure, might start to have a longer, more complicated labour. And as labour gets longer and more complicated, the woman becomes more tired, exhausted, loses focus, and the body becomes exhausted as well. The uterus, it's a muscle, and it can become exhausted as well. So then we start to see intervention and a more complicated labour perhaps. So what we can also read from this is the opposite. The more we can bring this down, and the more we can bring the labour hormones up. So our job as support people is to keep our labouring woman over here as much as possible while still listening to her. We must still listening to her. If she's feeling fearful or scared that something's not right with her or the baby, and we've tried to gently help her to come over here and she can't, then she really needs to listen to those instincts, listen to that intuition as well. So what we want to do as support people is do everything we can to gently keep them over here in this area. So what is that going to look like? That's going to look like keeping the lights down. That's going to look like having some nice music on, creating the mood, making sure she's warm enough with enough blankets, keeping her as comfortable as possible throughout contractions, and helping her to feel very safe and secure, communicated with and listened to. Dr. Sarah Buckley has done a lot of research into the hormones of labour, and her book is a fantastic resource for you, Gentle Birth, Gentle Mother, looking at the hormones in labour and what we need to do to support a woman in labour. So the other thing to notice is that hospitals are set up to deal with an emergency. Okay, so often their very setup their very nature works against a woman in labour. So there's a couple of things that we need to do to counteract this a little bit. So the first thing that we need to do is stay home as long as possible. Now everyone gets told stay home as long as possible, but never really quite understand what that means. It means a couple of things, and one of the things that it means is that obviously at home we can really create this environment. We can control the environment a little bit more. We have our own things around. We can move from room to room as we please. We have more space. You feel like being in the kitchen, you feel like being in the bedroom or the bathroom, or going outside, okay, or going for a walk. So you've got a lot more, you can really help to bring yourself into this place. Now some people even just feel a bit fearful, a bit anxious, a bit insecure about the hospital setting just because it's a hospital. I remember a client knowing that the smell makes her feel a bit anxious, that hospital smell, and she was worried about, you know, that she started to realize that that could be something that if she hadn't thought about it and hadn't become conscious about it, that very smell could have taken her into feeling insecure. So she just was very mindful when she arrived at hospital to stay calm and relaxed and centered and put that to the side. So we want to stay home as long as we can, because we have a lot more things at our disposal for us to feel safe and secure and warm and comfortable and all those lovely things that we need to come into a nice, strong labour that is going to be straightforward and hopefully even shorter. Now, with the hormones, there's another bonus there. The more hormones you get, the more pain relief you often get. There's hormones, including endorphins, in there that make you feel good. So a lot of women after a normal birth actually feel on quite a high because they're full of oxytocin, they're full of endorphins and other beautiful hormones that make them feel like that. There's other areas in our life as well, for example, singing and dancing, that are connected to this, so which sort of a little bit comes back to the courting in some ways. So some of the hormones that are present in labour are also present when we're singing, when we're dancing, or when we're in that social situation where we sort of forget ourselves. We let go of our inhibitions, we might let go of our insecurities and really become very present in the situation that we're in, and also lose track of time. And all of these things also happen in labour. We start to, as the hormones rise and we feel safe and start to turn inward, we start letting go of our inhibitions, our worries, our insecurities, and turning inward and becoming very present. And the sense of time does become very abstract in labour. It happens in labour, which is very interesting, when we are supported, when women are supported into a lovely strong labour like this with lots of hormones. A couple of other special things happen. One is we become very intuitive, so your instincts become stronger, and we really need to listen to that. So you become more intuitive about what you and your baby needs. So I always say to the partners, the more you support your partner over here, the more she's supported into this space, and the more safe and secure she feels, the more intuitive she's going to be about what her and the baby need, and also about whether her and the baby are safe or not. So you can really listen to women in that stage, when the more supported they are in labour, the more you can trust her instincts and her intuition. Now, an interesting thing does happen with the birth, that as she actually starts to the pushing phase or second stage, actually birthing the baby, we do get a little bit of adrenaline into our system, which really wakes women up, makes them quite alert about what's going on around them and connect back outward. So here, during most of labour, pre-labour and first stage, we have this real turning inward and letting go. As we come into the birth, we do get some adrenaline, become quite alert and quite focused on what's going on around us as we start to feel the baby coming down and actually birthing the baby. Then when the baby comes back to skin, you might have heard how important it is for the mother and the baby to have skin to skin immediately or as soon as possible after the baby's born. That's because we have that little bit of adrenaline at the birth. We bring the baby to our chest for the skin to skin. The stress hormones go down. You know the baby's safe now in your chest and in your arms. And the love hormones, the birth hormones, the oxytocin starts to rise back up. And this does quite a lot of things to help with your milk coming in, to help with the feeling of safety and security for the baby, to help the baby feel calm and settled. It helps also for the mother's recovery. So it starts to help stop any excessive bleeding and bring the uterus back down to size for a safe recovery for the mother and for the baby. So there's a lot that happens with the hormones, and what we need to do is support the woman over here. So you can start to see where you might start formulating a birth plan around some of these things that you want and that you don't want, that you prefer and you prefer not, whichever way that you want to look at it. The last thing that I want to say is that as we come into this space in labour, if you are going to hospital for birth, often women become very instinctive about when they want to go to the birth. So it comes back to that thing of stay home as long as possible. It's really stay home until you feel that really strong instinctive urge to go to the hospital. And I laugh with the partners, you won't be able to hold her back then. She'll just be out the door. She won't be asking, do you think we should go to the hospital? Maybe we should go to the hospital. She'll be out the door. But always call your caregiver before you go, so that they're ready for you and they can talk to you before you come in, which might even help to calm you down and stay home a little further. The more established your labour is when you go into hospital, where you change environments, the better it is for you and the baby. So I want you to start writing a birth plan, or I like to call it a birth vision, a vision of your birth. So you've got a lot to start to work with now from the first 3 videos. You might have started to notice some holes in your knowledge, or some conflicting ideas, or some confusing information, or some questions coming up. So they're going to be areas that you really need to start finding out more about and doing some research. We will cover a lot more in the next 4 videos. Also from yesterday, the support. Put that into your birth plan. Start looking at those people who are going to be your support team and how you're going to work with them. One thing that usually does happen, once you tap into one person that you really love and feels really right for you, you'll probably find quite a few other practitioners and women that will support you in that journey. And then you've got this picture here of keeping you over this way. What is going to help you feel safe and secure in labour? What is going to help set the mood for you? What is loving kindness for you? What makes you feel relaxed and centered and calm? Okay? What makes you feel safe, secure, relaxed, centered and calm? And what is making you feel any of these things? So whatever's starting, any of these particular things that we went through with the stress hormones, I want you to start thinking about what things do you need to deal with in some way. So perhaps you think, oh yeah, what am I fearful of? Ask yourself these questions and then work out what you think you can do in order to minimize or eliminate that fear. Sometimes it's just misinformation. Sometimes, so you might need to go and get more information about something. Knowledge is power. So if you do have questions and unknowns, it is good to go and get some more information as you need it. So start taking some notes. You know, what might make you feel insecure or unsafe at the birth? So this can also start leading into which support people you're having at the birth, how you're preparing for your birth. What are you frightened about? What are you confused about? So we want to start addressing these things so that we can minimize them for your labour and your birth. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for secret number 4. Thank you.